The courtroom was hushed, the kind of silence that carried a weight heavier than stone. All eyes weren't on the defendant, nor the attorneys arguing their cases. Instead, they were fixed on one man sitting in the back row, a young lawyer with kind eyes, neatly combed hair, and a small, silver cross dangling around his neck. His name was Daniel Carter. Judge John Neely Kennedy, known for his sharp wit and piercing intellect, noticed the necklace immediately. Kennedy was a man who had seen countless people use symbols as schlitza badges to mask weak arguments or fragile egos. To him, the cross Daniel wore wasn't just an accessory, it was an open statement of faith. And in a legal world built on evidence, reason, and logic, Judge Kennedy had little patience for what he assumed was sentimentality. "Mr. Carter," Kennedy said sternly before the trial began, "the courtroom is a place of law, not symbols. Do you plan on arguing your case with that necklace, or with your mind?" The room chuckled quietly, and Daniel's face flushed with embarrassment. He touched the cross gently, then lowered his hand. "With my mind, Your Honor, but my faith reminds me to use it wisely." The words were soft, respectful, but they stirred something in Kennedy. Still, he waved a dismissive hand. "We'll see." What no one in that courtroom, and not the prosecutors, not the defense, not even the stern judge himself, was that Daniel Carter was no ordinary attorney. He had grown up in poverty, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. The cross he wore wasn't decoration, it was his late mother's gift, the one she had pressed into his palm the night before she passed away. "Let this remind you," she had whispered, "that truth and compassion must always walk together." Now, years later, Daniel found himself facing one of the most complicated cases of his career. His client was a factory worker accused of embezzling millions from the company, a case that seemed cut and dry on paper. The evidence stacked against the man was overwhelming. The prosecution smug and confident. Most thought the trial would last no more than a week before ending in conviction. But Daniel saw something others didn't. Hidden in the piles of financial statements, emails, and company records, he noticed a strange pattern. The numbers told a different story, one of manipulation, hidden hands, and a setup orchestrated by powerful executives who wanted a scapegoat. Each day in court, Daniel stood before Judge Kennedy and unraveled the threads of deception. His arguments were precise, but also full of heart. He didn't just present facts, he painted a picture of injustice, one detail at a time. And though Kennedy had initially mocked him for his necklace, the judge couldn't help but lean forward, listening more intently than usual. There was one pivotal day when Daniel's genius shone brightest. The prosecution had just presented what they called irrefutable evidence, a document with Daniel's client's signature authorizing the transfer of stolen funds. The jury shifted in their seats, some already convinced. Daniel rose calmly, adjusting his tie, the cross glinting under the lights. "Your Honor," he began, "I'd like to request that this document be examined under enhanced imaging." Kennedy raised an eyebrow. "Enhanced imaging, counsel, what exactly are you suggesting?" Daniel's eyes met the judge's, unwavering. "That this signature, a broken bar, is a forgery." The courtroom gasped. The prosecution laughed. "A forgery? That's a desperate claim." But Kennedy, intrigued, allowed the test. Hours later, the results came back. Daniel was right. The document had been doctored. His client had never signed it. From that moment on, the trial shifted. One by one, Daniel dismantled the prosecution's case, exposing the corruption within the company and revealing the true culprits. By the time closing arguments came, the jury no longer saw a guilty man sitting at the defense table, they saw a victim of a corporate machine that would have crushed him if not for Daniel's brilliance. When the verdict of not guilty was read, the courtroom erupted in murmurs of disbelief. Daniel's client wept, clutching his hands in gratitude. Judge Kennedy, usually quick to dismiss cases and move on, lingered on the bench longer than usual. He looked at Daniel with new eyes. No longer did he see a young lawyer clinging to a symbol. He saw a man of integrity, intellect, and courage. As the gavel fell, Kennedy called Daniel forward. The room quieted again. "Mr. Carter," Kennedy said, his voice softer than before, "I owe you an apology. I judged you too quickly, not by your arguments, but by your necklace. Today, you reminded this courtroom and me that wisdom isn't diminished by faith, nor is faith diminished by wisdom. You've shown us what it means to be both a man of law and a man of principle." Daniel bowed his head respectfully. "Thank you, Your Honor. My mother always told me that truth is strongest when spoken with both courage and compassion. I just try to live by that." Kennedy leaned back, a rare smile tugging at his lips. "Well, so in a broken bar today, you've reminded us all that genius doesn't wear a mask. It wears a heart." And from that day forward, Judge John Neely Kennedy never looked at that small silver cross the same way again. It was no longer just a symbol, it was a reminder that sometimes the greatest strength in law, and in life, comes not only from the mind but also from the soul. The story of Daniel Carter spread far beyond that courtroom. Students of law quoted him, colleagues respected him, and even the stern Judge Kennedy often referred back to that case when young lawyers stood nervously before him. Because the lesson was simple yet profound: never underestimate a person by what they wear, or what they believe. True brilliance shines through actions, integrity, and the courage to stand for what's right even when the world doubts you.